still thinking about history and evolution and whether it's okay to be alive. So turn off now if this is a topic you don't like. Yeah, I'm just thinking about Daniel Dennett, actually. Daniel Dennett and his idea of cranes, which he uses as a kind of mechanism to divide evolutionary history into a series of stages. And cranes, in Dennett's writings, are evolutionary developments which, once they've taken place, allow for a massive outgrowth of further development. So, for example, he cites the eukaryotic prokaryotic revolution, when we went from being single-celled organisms, not we, but when single-celled organisms went from being without a nucleus, I think this is right, to with a nucleus. Effectively what happened there is that single-celled organism was kind of invaded, loaded language, I know, but never mind, was kind of invaded by another single-celled organism, so they set up a symbiotic relationship where one lived inside the other, kind of. And it effectively became a single reproducing unit in and of itself. And once that happens, that allows for all kinds of additional development. And then another crane is the development of multicellular organisms. And this took millions and millions of years. Most of life history was single-celled organisms. And when we became multicellular organisms, again, once that happens, that allows for diversification in the types of organisms that can be produced, and it starts to allow the formation of bodies, really. So a single reproducing entity is no longer the individual cell, it's the community of cells, which is effectively what we are, a kind of community of cells, or at least that's what our bodies are. Highly specialised communities of cells which reproduce as a single entity. And again, that's a massive leap forward, a sea change in what can happen in evolution. And what else does he cite? I think he cites consciousness. He probably cites others as well, but he cites consciousness as one of those, and language development, I think, alongside that. Because once you've got that, it allows for all other kinds of another type of evolution to take place. In this case, it's kind of social evolution, mimetic evolution, the evolution of all this, really, sort of the kind of extended phenotype that Dawkins talks about. That's not quite right either, actually, but never mind. It allows for that kind of, as I say, non-biological process to take place once you've got language and evolution. But what I'm quite interested in all that is, to what extent are these stages, whether we use Dennett's cranes as stages, or whether there be some other kind of mechanism. Is there a way of looking at any of those stages as breaks from the past? Because one of the things that I think about sometimes, and I'm not the only one, is that we do kind of live with a debt to history. I've occasionally phrased this in terms of things like original sin, which I know is highly loaded language again, but we do kind of owe a debt to history. We are all the descendants of the most successful primates in our particular pack, and the most successful primates were quite likely to be those which were the most vicious in some cases. Not in every case, I'm sure. There were some very attractive females in our past as well, and there were some very smart sidekicks in our past, and there was lots of other ways to get by as a social species. But certainly, we have got a lot of slave owners, and we have got a lot of gang leaders, and we have got a lot of mass murderers in our history, all of us. At the very least, very active soldiers. Otherwise we wouldn't be here. It speaks for itself. And prior to that, of course, we've got a lot of other kinds of histories to do with, before human social organisation, or primate social organisation. We do have a history which is at least partially to do with the killing and eating of other life forms, and for many people still is. If you're not a vegetarian, then you're still doing it in a way. But probably in a way which is more humane now. So anyway, yeah, so is that, as I said, I do get a little bit haunted by that sometimes, by that history. And I'm just wondering, is there any validity in saying this is a break from the past? That once you get consciousness, does it make you something different? or maybe even not consciousness. Maybe you need to be born again. You know, I think there's a lot of kind of theological relationship to that. That whole born again thing it's not about the narrative that I've just discussed. It's a different kind of being born again, released from a different kind of sin. But it is the idea that you can put the past behind you by going through some kind of ritual process of rebirth. And in fact, there's therapeutic methods like that, aren't there? There's what's it called? It's probably called rebirthing, I think. Jankoff, I can't remember what it's called. You know, where they shove you in like they shove you in a rolled up duvet or something like that, and get you really hot and rebirth you. I think that's a kind of psychological version of that, where you can be released from the demons of your past and reborn into a new consciousness. And a lot of initiation processes and rites of passage type processes seem to be about that. And just growing up, you know, just growing up and maturing and coming of age, those kind of things are all in a sense about saying the past is a different country. What's the quote? The past is another country. They do things differently there. It's all that kind of process that we truly can put the past behind us. I don't know. Maybe. Oh, stones. So yeah, maybe we can. I don't know. I mean, I still get a little bit haunted by it, and particularly, you know, as I do on these walks, see a lot of it still around. You know, I do come along a lot of dead stuff on these walks. You know, one or two people have said to me, how can you possibly see so many dead animals? I don't know. I didn't used to see any, but when I started noticing a few, I just noticed how many there were. So I guess it's like one of those things, you know what I mean, where you suddenly notice how much blue there is in the room or whatever. I think it's just one of those. I'm just noticing how many corpses I go past every day. Baby guy, come on! So yeah. Is it possible to put it all behind you? Maybe. Go on, you two.